Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Reviews. Today I'll be talking about Cthulhu Saves Christmas on the Nintendo Switch. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a Western-developed game and a very refreshing take on the JRPG genre. It was developed by, I believe, 3 people, and is very similar to other indie RPGs by the mostly excellent Zeboyd games. If you've not heard of them, I'll get into that here in a minute. Probably their biggest or most popular release on the Switch, for some reason, seems to be Cosmic Star Heroine, which is one of their only games, as far as I know, that is not built upon an existing property. I think it's probably my least favorite game by them, Cosmic Star Heroine. However, I thoroughly enjoyed Zeboyd Games' penny arcade RPGs that they did on the 360, which I don't even know if you can still buy them anymore. I feel like you can't, probably. If you're a PC gamer, you may be able to find those games still on Steam, and I would recommend them. They are pretty awesome. In any case, let's get back to Cthulhu Saves Christmas. Everything about this game is a love letter to 16-bit RPGs. They've enhanced the strong points and mitigated the weaknesses of that genre, in my opinion. Cthulhu Saves Christmas took me 8 hours to finish on my first playthrough, which I think now a lot of people are gonna balk at that and say that that's way too short for an RPG, but I could not disagree more. I think it's perfect. It gives you all of those warm, fuzzy RPG nostalgia vibes without all of the grinding and the narrative that falls apart towards the last third of the game, which happens in so many JRPGs that doesn't really happen here for reasons that I'll get into. And a lot of JRPGs, they just feel like they refuse to end. They just keep dragging on way past quitting time. They're like the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Anyways, that's probably my biggest gripe with JRPGs in general. And this game is clearly aware of those issues and just discards them. 8 hours is enough to feel like, you're playing an RPG. It's not a 1 or 2 hour game. It allows you to spend some time with it before it's over, and that's enough. For example, if I'm ordering ice cream, I love ice cream. It's delicious, but I don't need a movie theater popcorn bowl sized container for my ice cream, even though I love it. Look, I'm in my 40s and I can have a single or a double scoop, and honestly, that's great. Anything more than that is kind of it's just excessive. It's too much at this point, and that's how I feel about JRPGs, if that comparison helps this to make sense to you. So battles in this game are somewhat random, but can actually be skipped if you time the press of a button correctly, because it lets you know when you're about to get into a battle, and you can just press a button if you time it right, and you'll skip it entirely. You won't even have to go into the battle and then run from none of that. You just press a button, you skip the battle. However, even if you choose to fight your battles, and I did, and I recommend it, because I don't know if the enemies scale, if the bosses scale or not, but I didn't want to run into that situation, so I went ahead and fought all the battles. And anyways, there's a counter that tells you how many more random battles before you've completely cleared that area permanently. There's a finite number of random battles per area that you can run into. Sometimes it's around 10, sometimes it's around 15. But, once you do that many random battles, you are free to explore without any worry of random battles. And I think that is an awesome system for a JRPG, because you know exactly where you stand in terms of, how many more of these battles am I going to have to push through? You know the answer to that question, at all times. I can deal with almost anything if I know that it's finite and if I know how much longer I have to go. And I think, a lot of people work this, similarly. Now, that's not to say that the battles here are unpleasant. Quite the opposite, actually. They do run a little bit long by turn-based JRPG standards, but there is some actual strategy involved. Some of each character's usable abilities are randomized every time you enter a battle, so you really need to slow down, and instead of just mashing attack, or doing some epic summon to clear the screen every time you get into a battle, which there really aren't any epic summons in this game, but I think it works to this game's benefit. Instead it actually benefits you to slow down every time you get into a battle and figure out which techniques or spells or what have you are at your disposal this time, and and how do you want to use those or combine those to get through the battle, efficiently or whatever. So that randomization really adds to taking a second to really slow down and think about how you want to approach the combat, which means that it's less monotonous and it's more engaging, at least in my opinion. And everything that I've just said, now that's the case on normal mode, which is what I played through. On easy mode, maybe you don't have to consider those sorts of things. Maybe you just blow through all the battles super easy, super quick. I don't know, but I played on normal. Like I said, it took me 8 hours, and I totally enjoyed my experience. It was really great. Moving on, I have no complaints about the presentation. It is, as intended, very nostalgic, both in the visuals and the audio. And again, that's par for the course for any of these Zeboyd developed JRPGs. The writing is really enjoyable and endearing for the most part, with humor that manages to be both silly and a little clever, both at the same time, which isn't always easy to pull off. Most games don't pull that off, in my opinion. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is very self-aware and does a fair amount of breaking the fourth wall, which has the potential to go either way, but I think it works quite well here. Like, they really pull it off, in my opinion. Most of the time. I mean, not everything lands, but at least basically you can tell that the game was written by someone who has like something in between his ears, which is nice. So this is basically just a very streamlined JRPG. Another way that kind of manifests itself is with equipment and skills management, which is fairly minimal in this game. And the town segments remind me, in sort of a weird way, they remind me a bit of No More Heroes 2, in that you just, or another way to look at that, you're kind of like Shining in the Darkness as well, in that you just select where you want to go and what you want to do. If you want to go to the library, you just select it from a menu, you watch a little story cutscene, and then you get whatever reward or item, usually a piece of equipment that is associated with the choice that you made. So when you go to a town in between exploration segments, you do that 3 or 4 times in a row. You pick a location, you watch a story segment, which is, again, usually at least semi-entertaining, and then you get an item, and you do that 3 or 4 times, and then it's on to the next adventure segment. There is no backtracking and no overworld. The game is very linear for an RPG, which I don't mind at all. I like the nostalgia vibes, and I like the fact that they've kept everything in that kind of triggers those nostalgia feelings, while at the same time streamlining out all of the frankly the tedious bits that I could do without in a JRPG. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is essentially the perfect, concise JRPG nostalgia machine. For those of us who grew up on the genre and have fond memories, but are honestly too burned out on the genre, or just don't have the time for some 60 to 80 hour Square Enix grindfest. Like I mentioned, I finished the game in 8 hours, spread across 2 sittings, though you could certainly get it done in a single session if you have the time. It sells for $10 on the eShop, or a little bit more than $1 per hour, and is fully worth that price in my estimation. Though I do think the longer than average battles in a story that doesn't take itself seriously at all means that it may not work for everyone. Although I think that the developers really pulled it off in this particular case. Anyways, look, that pretty much does it for this one. Thanks for watching, and please click like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time, whenever that may be.